Go.
Welcome everyone to the second virtual cabinet meeting hosted by Bassetlaw District Council. My name is Simon Greaves. I'm council leader and chair of cabinet. Given the current situation that we all face following the outbreak of COVID-19, the law has changed to allow councils to host virtual meetings rather than requiring councillors to be present in the council chamber when making decisions. This keeps everyone safe by maintaining social distancing and allows business to be conducted in an appropriate manner. It's very important that all councillors and officers and the public can hear everything that's taking place. And so what I will do in a moment in alphabetical order is invite councillors and then officers to introduce themselves and in doing so test audio and their broadband connections. So first of all, in relation to members, Councillor Dukes, please.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Here.
Thank you. My audio and connections working well. Councillor Lee.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Present, Chair.
And Councillor White.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. We do have a number of liaison members that are joining us this evening. First of all, Councillor Brand.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Fielding.
Present, Chair.
Thank you very much. In relation to officers that are supporting the meeting this evening, Mr. Armiger.
Yes, I'm present, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes, I'm present, Chair.
Thank you. And Mrs. Hopkinson.
Present, Chair.
Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, everybody.
And Mr. Wormold.
Yeah, present, Chair.
Thank you. And also, I understand Mr. Lavender is with us this evening to assist with with the technology.
Yep, present, Chair.
Thank you. Now, if during the meeting we lose connectivity and the meeting becomes inquorate or the live streaming for the public fails, I shall adjourn the meeting for up to 5 minutes to allow for the connection to be re-established. Now, given that this is a virtual meeting, there's no corporate responsibility to give details about fire alarm procedures and so on as I normally would do. However, I would just like to highlight that the committee is being live streamed on social media. So all participants just be aware of your actions and take appropriate safety precautions as necessary. And also, just to help that everyone can hear each other clearly, can I please remind members to switch off the microphones when not speaking? That will help with any background audio. And also, just for information, because this is an extraordinary meeting of Cabinet, there's no provision for questions from the public at the very beginning, as there are in traditional meetings. And I'd also like to confirm that the committee papers for this meeting, like all committee meetings, are available through the Bassetlaw Council website. Now, that being the case, and those introductions being dealt with, I would like to turn to agenda item 1, which is apologies. Have any apologies been received, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Quigley.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2 is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. Have any declarations of interest been received?
I've not received any, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, if during the meeting anyone does feel that there's an interest that needs to be declared, if they could just raise that as soon as possible at the appropriate point, and we'll be able to deal with that matter. Now, agenda item 3 is, in particular 3A, is the report is a report from the Cabinet Member for Finance in relation to the financial outturn for 2019 to 2020. Now, this is regarded as a key decision, number 815, and this report is to be found at pages 5 through to 77 of the agenda pack. What I'd like to do next is to turn to Councillor Evans, Cabinet Member for Finance and Property, in order to outline the report. So if I could just please turn to Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report details the Council's 2019-20 financial outturn position on both revenue and capital budgets, factoring in specific financial pressures on Council over the last year. Starting with the overview of the General Fund revenue outturn, members can see from the table at paragraph 3.1 that there was an underspend of 1.202 million on service budgets. There were some savings from other budgets of 104,000, but a net pressure of 64,000 on financing income. This gave a total underspend of 1.242 million against the net cost of council expenditure. However, there were various movements to and from reserves, leaving a total outturn of 836,000 to be transferred to the General Reserve. Members should know this transfer to the General Reserve is mainly made up of 750,000 from what was A1 housing management fees, plus the final underspend of 86,000. And this gave a balance of 3.569 million for the General Reserve at the 31st of March 2020. The table at 3.3 details variances in budgets, and further information is provided at Appendix A. Chair, members are asked to approve a number of underspends as carry forwards from 2019-20 to 2021, as detailed at paragraph 3.5. And members should also be aware that Council has set aside a £100,000 corporate contingency fund should any financial difficulties arise. I now turn to the housing revenue account outturn for 2019-20. The table at paragraph 3.8 shows an underspend of 884,000. Of this, 749,000 is a net transfer to the HRA reserve, which increases the balance of 2.238 million at the 1st of April 2019 to now it is 3.032 million as at 31st of March 2020. This means the HRA reserve balance is 1.732 million above the minimum level. Further details on the housing revenue account outturn can be seen at Appendix B. Members are asked to approve a carry forward of 75,000 into 2021 in order to complete a doors and windows replacement programme. Moving to capital outturn for 2019-20. The capital programme, following revision and delegated decisions, totalled 25.772 million. The table at 3.13 shows there has been a reduced level of expenditure amounting to 9.648 million against the capital programme budget. This means that the total capital spending in year was 16.124 million. Cabinet is asked to approve the capital financing proposals summarised at paragraph 3.14 and detailed in Appendix C. The final capital outturn is a 63% spend of the budget. Consequently, Cabinet is requested to approve the reprofiling of capital schemes totaling 9.564 million, and these are detailed in Appendix D. Moving on to provisions against future events. Cabinet is asked to approve movements in provisions which are shown in the table at 3.16 and each is very clearly explained. Impaired estimates on debtors. This section deals with an estimate of the amount of debt that is uncollectible and will probably have to be written off in future accounts. Cabinet is required to approve movements in the impaired estimates on debtors, and these are listed in the table at 3.17, followed by supplementary information. Regarding usable capital reserves, these are either for a specific future purpose or to cover a contingency, and those retained for capital purposes must be separately identified from those retained for revenue purposes. Any movements in existing reserves or creation of new reserves must be approved by Cabinet. Capital reserves used within year for the capital programme are shown in the table at 3.19. The increase in reserves is mainly due to slippage in the capital programme. Most of the increase will be used to finance any approved carry forwards. Usable revenue reserves are, in simple terms, for anything that is not capital. The table at 3.20 lists all the general fund reserves, along with both the housing revenue account working balance and reserve. It includes reserves for specific one-off initiatives in 2019-20, and further information on reserves can be found at Appendix E. The collection fund for 2019-20 details income from the collection of council tax and business rates, with further information given from paragraph 3.21 to 3.25. As for pensions, I refer you to the report by Barnett Waddingham at Appendix F. Regarding the balance sheet, there are some significant movements to note. One is the increase by 4.8 million in property, plant and equipment due to revaluation of housing stock, and plus a 5.7 million decrease to 68.3 million council's pension liability, mainly due to changes in interest and discount rates. The annual Treasury Management Outturn report can be seen at Appendix G. Chair, there are no prudential indicators to highlight. And I now ask Cabinet to approve the 8 recommendations listed from paragraph 6.1 to paragraph 6.8. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Mr. Hill, is there anything you would wish to add at all?
Yes, if I may, Chair, just a couple of points. The first one being that back in February, when we received Q3 out the Revenue Capital Monitoring Report, we were forecasting on the general fund a surplus of 87,000 without any one-offs. And as members will see from the table in paragraph 3.3, there's 2 significant one-offs that account for almost all the surplus we've made this year. Normally, between Q3 and Q4, we see that surplus grow, but that has been hit apparently by the outbreak of COVID towards the end of March. And so things like car park income, markets income, the fact that we suspended debt recovery, leisure, and the investment interest, as the interest rates were lowered to 0.1%, were all affected. And so that surplus that we'd have expected from ongoing revenue expenditure hasn't appeared. The second thing I'd like to mention is that, as June's pointed out, the surplus or the balance on the general reserve is in excess of the minimum reserve. Our minimum balance is 1 million, and as I reported last year, we were holding quite a high balance because of the uncertainty around the fair funding review and of the uncertainty of the business rates retention scheme that were coming in, because we were at that point, we didn't know the splits between us and upper tier authorities. Those 2 uncertainties still remain and now have been added to by the impact of COVID-19 and the loss of income and the extra costs that are associated with that. So we have got a balance that's in excess of the minimum, but it's almost all required to address those uncertainties. I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Well, thank you very much for that additional information. What I would like to do, I would like to ask if there are any comments, questions or observations in relation to this report. There is a facility for people to indicate through a facility, a chat room facility, if people want to indicate in that fashion. Just to give a heads up, then I'm happy to take any colleagues that may wish to raise any comments, questions or observations. Or if that isn't available, if you could just indicate by raising a hand, I'm quite happy to take that as well. I don't know if there are any at the moment, though. Well, the only person that I know is indicated thus far is Councillor Dukes. There doesn't appear to be any other members that wish to indicate, Councillor Dukes. I don't know if you'd be happy to comment at this point.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I welcome this report. I think it's very comprehensive and gives a very clear outline of the state of play. Obviously, it's a clear outline of the state of play prior to COVID-19. Although it may look like we've got lots of money in the bank, it's not going to stay that way for very long, I'm sure. And I will use this opportunity to say again that I think it is beholden on national government to make sure that any shortfall that we find through the work that we've done to support the communities in COVID-19 is covered, as was promised right at the beginning of the crisis. The money that we have in our extra in our funds is going somewhere little way to help support things like our leisure, which has seen no activity for nearly 3 months now. If we look in the tables, brought in £700,000 worth of profit last time, £70,000 worth of profit. Sorry, that is not going to happen this year. So we need to be aware of that and the effect that what the situation we're working through at the moment is going to have this time next year, or when this extraordinary cabinet meeting happens next time. We do need to keep pressuring central government to make sure that we are getting the monies that we need to support the communities that we look after. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dukes. I don't know if there's anything that Councillor Evans wishes to say in reply at all.
Nothing, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. If there aren't any other contributions to be made, I'd just like to say that I recognise the huge amount of work that's been underway in the background to bring this report forward. And I recognise that this work, in terms of managing the variables and the risks and bringing all the numbers together, has taken place as we have been working our way through lockdown and working our way out from it. So there's been a huge amount of work in order to bring this report forward, and I'm grateful for the work that's been undertaken there. The authority is managing a huge amount of variables. That is very, very clear. Many authorities have seen a downturn in income to support council services, and that also applies in our case as well. The impact upon leisure centres, car park charges and so on do have a significant impact. And I don't think anyone can really ignore that as funding to local government has been cut, we've had to income has been needed in order to make sure the front line keeps on running. So I think that we are in a fortunate position with a number of one-off events. I'm very interested in the work continuing with the carry forwards that have been identified, because all that work is very important for us. So I'm most grateful for the work that's been undertaken. If there aren't any other observations or comments, what I would like to do is to invite colleagues in alphabetical order, whether they are for or against or abstain from the recommendations that are to be found at page 16 through to 17 and is outlined by Councillor Evans. So first of all, if I could turn to Councillor Dukes, please.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour of the recommendations. Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Scotthorne.
Thank you, Chair. For.
Councillor Shaw.
For, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you. Those recommendations are therefore carried. As this is an extraordinary meeting of Cabinet, there's simply one substantive agenda item which has just been under consideration. So the next agenda item is any other business to agenda item 4. There isn't any other business that is considered to be urgent that's been brought to my attention. So on that basis, I would bring the meeting to a close and thank everyone for their attendance and contributions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.